we are back, and now we're gonna go into the demonstration portion of this video. So coming up, I've got two pair of shoes. One of them is counterfeit, one of them is authentic, and I want you guys to tell me in the comments below which one you think is the true choice before we get into the answer. So here we have two pairs of the Air Jordan 4 Union Off Noir, and here's pair number 1, and here we have pair number 2. Which pair is the authentic pair? I'm going to give you guys a few seconds. Put it in the comments below. If you thought pair number 1 was the authentic pair, you are incorrect. It is actually pair number 2. This is the authentic model, while sadly this is the counterfeit model. Now, just being completely transparent, this is a well-made fake shoe, and fortunately for this comparison, both shoes are the same size. A lot of times we see during comparison videos, the shoes aren't the same size, which really does hinder the comparison to some extent. But this pair of counterfeit Unions was actually a pair I purchased off of eBay last year. I actually hit a pair for retail, but it wasn't my size, so I wound up selling it. And then I went and decided I did want a pair, so I purchased it off eBay when the price was still relatively low. And when I got it in hand, I said, something's not right about this. And then I went on to determine it was fake. I made my case. I filed a complaint in the case at eBay. They sided with me, and the seller never responded back because obviously they knew that they had been exposed. And I got my money back, and I was able to keep the shoe. And I always said I was going to keep this shoe for a video just like this. Now, a few months ago, I did purchase this shoe again. Paid a little bit more money for it because I waited, and the price has risen since then. Once again, I did buy it through eBay, but now this shoe was subject to eBay's authentication process. Once again, I did own a pair of these before, so I knew what to look for. So instantly, I knew it was authentic when I saw it, and thanks to eBay's authentication process, just gave me an extra peace of mind. How did I determine this was a fake shoe when I first received it? And to be fair, it does help when you know or you have a real pair side by side. But let's go ahead and take a look at this pair. So one reason how I knew it was fake is that the black suede around the shoe is pretty faded. It's a nice suede. It feels nice to the touch. It has some color stroke motion, but in comparison, it is a dusty, faded black compared to the authentic pair. Another key difference is, look how bold the stitching lines are on the authentic pair. That white stitching really pops. On this pair, it's much more subdued and doesn't contrast as much against this other suede material. Before we get into the finer details, take a look. Notice how round the ankle collar is on the UA. It's a bit more angular on the authentic. Looking at them side by side, see how the authentic comes to a point while the UA is much more rounded. It's a much looser fit. Looking at this wings aglet crown, notice the distance between there and this mudguard panel on the UA. And conversely, look how much closer and tighter that is on the authentic pair. Now, when it comes to this mesh material, they actually feel pretty similar. So they did a pretty good job of matching those. You know, maybe there's some slight different color differential. You can see on the authentic pair that it may be a tad darker. Also too, notice how the toe box is much more round and then it's more elongated on the UA at the same points. But once again, that is something very minute that you will not notice if you don't have an authentic pair to compare it to. So just keep it at 100. This is a pretty well-made fake. So what really set you off? So here is the box lid for both shoes. The top is the counterfeit. The bottom is the authentic. Notice the size difference as I move my hand. So both boxes are flush right here on my left side, but look how much negative space we have on this side. UAs, and they're both the same size shoes, by the way. So UAs tend to use smaller boxes for their larger size shoes. If you wear size 12 through 14, they typically like to use the same size box, when in reality a size 13 box is a different size than a size 12 box here in the United States, or an authentic pairs. So that's the number one giveaway, the size of the boxes. Secondly, look at the detail of the top lid. Now this is an image of Jordan's hands with the Union logo written on top of it. Really take a look at the detail in the skin tones and in the hands. Now as I slide this up and you see the authentic pair, you see much more detail. You know, you see some noise in the skin tone of Jordan's hands. You don't really get that noise in the counterfeit pair. It's like it's been noise reduction been applied to it. It's much more smoother, but you lose so much detail. Look at his hands, particularly the inside of his hands on his right hand on this follow through, and look at his hand on the counterfeit. There's hardly any detail in his palm, and his fingers look like sausages. The Union Jordan 4s come with this graphic paper, and as you can see, it's a picture of Jordan. I believe it's from the 1987 All-Star game. You can see the gold chain, and inside of it is the shoes. But let's go back to tissue paper. Now taking a look at the authentic. Look at the colors. Look how Jordan's skin tone is much more natural. All colors are more represented. The paper isn't as flimsy or wrinkled. Okay, this is the authentic paper. This is a counterfeit. Wow, I never noticed how cheap this paper is. Even in my hand, it looks like it's going to tear and break. But this is the counterfeit. So you can see that the colors are misrepresented. It's way too much contrast. Holding them up side by side, the lengths are different. The length of the authentic is much longer, but you can just see the quality of the material. Look at the colors representations. So definitely this is where they skim, but they will always skim on the box, the tissue papers, and things of that nature. And I always wonder why. I think it's very difficult for them to actually 100% match the same materials that the manufacturers use, even though that's what they claim on their websites. They use 100% the same materials, and you will see varying degrees of accuracy from respective factories. Not every factory produces the same quality shoe or counterfeit. Some of them are 90% accurate, some of them are closer in the 80s. There are even some who are actually like 97, 99% accurate. But they're all going to have some kind of flaw. And shout out to Rob Dallas, one of the OGs on YouTube who I follow. He would call them intentionally flawed, meaning that they would flaw things on purpose. Because again, I guess to some extent that's the politics of it. They stay under the radar because they have an intentional flaw on their shoe that lets people know, hey, if you know your stuff, it's a counterfeit. Now, websites will always say, some of those counterfeit websites will say, you know, we do our best to accurately reproduce the shoe, and we would include things like a stock X tag and etc. And our shoes are very hard to differentiate between the retail pair, but they never say, hey, go ahead and legit check our pair or try to pass it through a legit check process. They never say that. They just say they get very close, as close as possible. Looking at the right shoe of the counterfeit, once again, looks good. It does come with the spare laces, the gold laces. All right, pay attention to the color in this plastic bag. That's another thing that always varies. They never have the same plastic bag. But looking at the shoe, I mean, it looks pretty good. It smells kind of like glue to some extent, but I've had these for a while now, so they don't smell quite as bad. But once again, just going over the shoe, you know, pretty firm midsole. You know, a lot of these shoes don't contain real air, or they have some kind of like counterfeit air, and sometimes the midsole is squishy, but this one feels pretty good. Once again, I really do give this props. This is a very good fake. You know, definitely could fool a lot of people with this one. Now comparing it to the real pair. So once again, notice how black and rich that suede is. Notice how vibrant the white stitching lines are. I think they did a really good job with the Nike Air, but you can see that on the counterfeit pair that the back is much wider. See how wide that back is compared to the authentic pair? And you might say, oh, it's because it's laced up a little differently, but you know, in reality, the base of this one is wider. See how it kind of starts off narrow, like the same size, and then it widens out as we get closer to the top. Comparing the laces. So on the authentic pair, we have the same plastic bag, but notice how the laces are, the bag is a little bit slimmer, more narrow. On the counterfeit, the bag is wider. Thus the laces are a bit more like balled in there, as opposed to this one is kind of laid down. Very minute differences. They actually feel like the same quality material, so they did a good job on that, but the bag is wider on the counterfeit pair compared to the authentic. Looking at the air bubble in the authentic, you do have a reddish orange air bubble, and then looking at the counterfeit, you have the same color. The next thing to look out for is price. So for example, this shoe retail for 250 bucks, and then now resale is north of $700. On a UA directly from a factory, you're gonna pay a lower price than retail. A lot of Air Jordan 1s are around 150. A shoe like this might be closer to 180, 200, and then you're expected to pay, you know, your import tax or your shipping. If you go to a resale site or a UA site and they're charging retail prices the same as retail, then typically you're dealing with a middleman. There's a middleman between you and this overseas factory, and they're taking a percentage off top, on top of probably having a deal with the factory and getting the shoes at a discount. So keep that in mind. If you're really into buying UAs, you can talk to the factory directly, and you can get multiple pairs in bulk at a lower price. So this video was for educational purposes. Do what you will with this information. I just don't want anyone to be scammed or defrauded into thinking they're buying something authentic when they're not. Okay, so use these tips to legit check your pairs, and if you are in the market to purchase a UA, now you know how to navigate the waters so to speak, and get a pair that you're satisfied with. All right, everyone, my name is Jay Rose for Ghostflykickz. I appreciate your support, and if you like this video, please hit that like button and share it with your friends and family. All right, everybody, I'll be back soon with more content. Peace out.